In this video, I want to give you a practice to help get this no-self experience going. And so far, a lot of what I've talked about has relied on neuroscience. And the basic argument is that neuroscience can't find the self in the brain, and that fits Eastern philosophy. What neuroscience has discovered is the left side of the brain seems to be the storyteller, so it makes up the idea or the story of the self. But all of this comes back to experience. So how do you really get at it? Ambivalence is such a wonderful thing. And really, when you look at the history of ambivalence, it actually goes back in psych. They originally thought it was to have mixed feelings. And that's what ambivalence is, to have mixed feelings or mixed emotions, or have this idea like part of me like wants this, but part of me wants something else. And that was thought of as a symptom of schizophrenia early on. And you can feel this in modern culture where to be decisive, to have one mind, is thought of as a very powerful thing. Whereas if you are not sure, or if you are a fence sitter, that's looked at as something negative. Of course, in the East, that's not true at all. And sometimes the best decision is to not decide at all. And so, what can ambivalence, what can it do? How can we embrace it? And how will it eventually cultivate this no self experience? There's a couple things I'm going to suggest in the video. One is to embrace the use of mixed feelings. So I was driving to work the other day and Nickelback came on, and depending on how old you are, you may remember this band, and immediately thought, well, I just don't like them. And decided to explore it a little bit. Is there really just an I? And is it so absolutely decisive and unilateral that it just doesn't like? And that wasn't true at all. In fact, when you start exploring, and again, I'm using you as just a linguistic phrase, but when the work is done and the inquiry is done, what happens is there's a whole multiplicity upstairs. There are parts of you. And I discovered, yeah, part of me doesn't like Nickelback, but there's a part of me that actually does. And then there's a part of me that likes that I don't like them, and another part that doesn't like that I like them. And that's just four. And so when you get into the multiplicity, you realize that this is one of the reasons research in psychology went from just asking yes or no. And when research started, it was always really simple. Yes, I agree. No, I don't. And they really discovered how powerful it was to go from that to 1 to 7. And the 1 to 7 is really helpful because it lets that democracy of the multiplicity work it out. And so you realize that no opinion is absolute. And so when you're asked, do you like motorcycle magazines, or whatever the question may be, you realize that it can, many times it's pretty complex, and like, well, maybe part of me does, part of me doesn't, and then you do the math and you give it a 4. And so this method has actually worked out to tap into not a single self. If we had a single self, it would just simply agree or disagree. And we can do this not just on surveys, but we can do it with people. And so it's, again, the self-illusion, this idea that we have one single opinion can make it very easy to say, I like this person, I don't like this person. Well, you can actually shift that around a little bit and put it on a scale. And then try to find the different parts of you. And maybe part of you does like this person, and another part doesn't. Another one part is envious, and another part of you feels sympathy for this person. And again, I'm using the phrase "part of me," and that's just a linguistic thing, because we're so used to falling back on the notion of a single self. And so the practice is to use the words, use the phrases. Part of the brain, part of this brain really likes this song. Part of this brain really does not like it. Part of this brain is indifferent. Part of this brain thinks the question is silly, and another part thinks it's quite ingenious. And that's what the left brain is so good at doing. It takes that multiplicity and it gets it down to some categorical monolithic self, and that's the illusion that so many of us have been experiencing.